Superintendent of Public Instruction. Mr. McGuire for the State Controller. Chairperson Hendricks, you have a quorum.
I'm Pat Donner, a retired teacher, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the ethics policy and some of the other gift policies. And all of this is a very good idea, but I think we need to be sure that we strike a balance and don't spend all of our resources tracking $50 gift purchases and so forth, and forget about the fact that what we're all about is benefits and services and pensions for our members. So please keep that in mind. We need a good ethics policy, but we need a balance. Thank you.
All right. So item 1 is approval for the committee agenda and work plans. Second. Item 2 is approval of the minutes of September 6, 2012 Benefits and Services Committee session. I'm sorry. It's the bottom left.
Okay, sorry. Can y'all hear me now? So let me go back. My iPad's not behaving. So
I can relate to that. It might be operator error though.
I was just gonna say, I think it might be. So this is a consent action item. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes for September 6th?
I'll move the minutes. Second.
Excellent, great. So item number 3, we have Peggy Plett here to talk about the retirement progress report.
This was intended as just a consent information item, so I mean, I'm happy to speak to it. I was going to address a few comments in my DCEO report, but I'm happy to do that now. You should have in front of you a copy of the retirement progress report, one for cash balance, one for defined benefit. Those are also available in the back of the room. These are generic copies. They are not any one particular member's information. I would like to note, in addition to what was in the write-up about this, that last year CalRTA had requested that we include information about the Social Security offsets in the DB retirement progress report. I'm happy to note that we did that this year, so you'll see in the packet that for DB that there is a section that speaks to the fact that while your CalSTRS benefit will not be impacted, your Social Security benefits, if you're entitled to receive them as a result of your own work or the result of your spouse, may be impacted. And it is on page 6 in the upper left-hand corner. Yours won't have this pretty little frame around it, but that was just to highlight the visually that information was provided. So.
Fancy box or
So you're saying that information wasn't included in the DB retirement report before?
That's correct. It was not included in there before. So that was done at the request of CalRTA, and the committee agreed with that request, and so we were able to add that for this year. On page 8, you know, I'm assuming all of these are the same, so they may not be. In some of them, they might be different. If you're I'm sorry, page 6. I'm looking at my numbers wrong. It's page 6. Additional information, upper left-hand corner, Social Security, CalSTRS, and you. My mistake. I mentioned last time we met that we ran our annual update process 5 weeks earlier. We ran it the earliest that we've ever done. We got our retirement progress reports posted several weeks before we ever have in the past. They are posted to every member's account electronically, regardless of whether that member has registered to access their MyCalSTRS account or not. Their information is posted there in a MyCalSTRS account for them. We are in the process of mailing the physical paper copies right now. The mailing started on Monday and they conclude sometime next week. We stagger that so that we don't inundate the contact center with a flood of calls because typically receipt of the retirement progress report generates concerns on the part of some members and they contact us if they have questions. So I'm available to answer any other questions that you may have on the retirement progress reports.
I had a question on the online version that folks can check on MyCalSTRS, and I've been telling everyone, if you go on MyCalSTRS, I can get it faster than waiting for it in the mail. So, but on the online version, is there a way to have hyperlinks on the online version for like glossary items and things like that, or is that just technically too much work to do that?
In the past, we've had some hyperlinks to those items, and when we've surveyed individuals, we got very, very little response saying that they used them. Okay. So, it's something that we could do. Certainly, that kind of information is available, but it's an added challenge to add that information in, and we found that very, very few members who responded back to our inquiries actually used that service.
And maybe this is sort of for the future, for the next couple of years. I'm a hyperlink fan. I think Chris Ailman knows that about me with the investment stuff. And so I'm trying to get more younger members, to go online. And I know a lot of the stuff that I do now, just with life in general, it's hyperlinks is becoming more of a common practice in terms of being able to look at a document online, and if you don't understand something, you can click on it, there's an explanation, or click on it. Like one of the things I was thinking of is even in this report, you could click to the calstrs.com, go back to, I know you're in the calstrs.com website, but you could flip into the calstrsbenefits.us website, or that there was a way to kind of interact around an electronic report so that if people wanted, as they read it, they wanted to get more information about supplemental, 403B or 457 or pension 2, that they could click on a link. And I realize I'm speaking from, the younger generation, but I know our generation, we love the hyperlinks, and I'm just wondering if that's maybe not something we do right now, but I know we're trying to get, especially in another conversation we're going to be having about getting people online and using the electronic version. I just wonder if we might start talking about making the electronic version a little more sophisticated that way. Okay. Are there any other questions from Terry? Hi, Terry.
Thank you. Peggy, what is roughly the cost to mail these statements to those? I know we're improving year by year, and it went up 31% relative to the number that receive it by email. But
That information is actually in the legislative committee agenda materials. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what page it's on.
That was 750,000.
But it's about, it is about that. There's two costs, right? There's a mailing cost and a print cost. And we have two vendors. This is the controller's office. No, the vendor, the print vendor also mails for us. It's about $400 for that. So it roughly costs us, around $700,000, $750,000 to produce that annually.
Ledge 21. Oh, you're on there. See it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm there.
I think we're talking about that in the legislative committee, correct? So we'll spend more time talking about that.
So just a sneak preview, when we get to the legislative committee, we are proposing that we get authority to issue an online only, similar to what we did with the direct deposit advices. So we avoid that cost, other than for the members who opt in to receive paper.
I had one other question, Peggy, around, I kind of went and looked on my own retirement report for this year, and is there a way, in that section where it talks about excess service or enhancements, is there a way, again, to be able to know what those enhancements are, or to get more explanation as to what that is on your annual report? Do you know what I'm talking about? The section that, when I went on my report, there's a section, and I'm not sure it happens for everyone, but it says excess service and enhancements. Do you know what I'm talking about, Ed?
I think he's talking about the limited. You may have gotten paid on a one-time basis or something, and it was credited. Was it credited to DBS? Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. It's a limited term enhancement stuff. I don't know. Well, we don't get, the employer doesn't report to us what it was for. They just simply report to us that it was paid. So we wouldn't be able to give much information about that.
Any other questions about the retirement report? Great, thanks, Vicki. All right, let's move on to item 4. Julia Durand.
Yeah, well, Julia's coming up here just to
okay.
introduce her, because many of you may not be aware. Julia is the director of our Defined Contribution Solutions Unit, and it's the unit of CalSTRS that administers the different defined contribution plans that she's going to be talking about. So I just want to make sure you had some context as to who she was. And she's also the outgoing president of the National Association of Government Defined Contribution Administrators, or NAGDA. So she's a high and mighty person.
Julia's going to take us through the 2011-12 Defined Contribution Program Report.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Oh, I did this wrong already.
No, don't do that.
Well, I'm getting off to a good start already.
Yeah, then it'll work after you restart there. Yeah.
Okay, shall I go ahead? Or?
Okay, now do the right button there. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
There's the right button. There's the right button. Yeah, I'm touching it.
Well, as you know, CalSTRS administers a hybrid system that consists of 3 programs: the defined benefit, the cash balance, and the voluntary defined contribution plan, which I'll be discussing this afternoon. But before I get into the Pension 2 program, I wanted to provide just a quick overview of DC plans on a national level and some of the issues that we're facing. Most notably, the recent changes affecting DC plans is the Department of Labor fee disclosure. It is not applicable to non-ERISA plans. However, it is important to note that many DC plans are considering implementing portions of that. The difficulty that public plans face with implementing them is that state laws take precedence. As added emphasis is placed on defined contribution plan administrators, the issues that are gaining attention, beginning with the new regulations in 2009, the 403B regulations, in which more responsibility has been placed on the deferred compensation plan administrators to take full responsibility for these plans. So on a national level, what we're seeing is that administrators are addressing this by beginning to consolidate the number of vendors to a more manageable number, and that number, which is considered to be manageable, can range anywhere from 1 to several. California is one of, we used to say about 5 states that have the any willing vendor provision, but I think it's narrowed down more to 2, and that Arizona and Iowa have consolidated down to, I believe Arizona is with 1 and Iowa reduced down to 5 vendors for their plan.
How many states have any willing vendor?
I used to say about 5, but I'm finding more evidence to support that there are about 2 that are remaining, California and Texas.
Texas, okay.
Yes.
Wow, here's a combo. That should tell us something.
So in tying that back to the DOL fee disclosure rules, it's nearly impossible for a state like California to provide such disclosures with over 63 vendors that we have to work with. So if you can imagine that it's difficult for the school administrators to manage 63 vendors, well, think about what that does for the educators who have to choose which investments that they'd like to invest in. We've provided this illustration from 403bcompare.com, which it's designed to give you a snapshot of what an employee or educator would have to do in order to determine the investments that they'd like to choose. So here, administrators or educators would visit the 403bcompare.com website. They then have to select the school district that they work for, and this is when it gets interesting. So once they enter here, they have 63 vendors to choose from with over 227 investment products. From there, we break it down a little bit further. Of those 227 investments, 50 mutual fund products, 68 fixed annuity products, 42 equity indexed, and 67 variable annuities. And then on either of those 2 ends, they then have to take another step, and there are over 3,900 funding options under the mutual fund option, or on the other side, the 67 variable annuities. From there are 2,278 sub-accounts.
Can I just interject, Julia? And
Sure.
Dana has a comment.
Can we get this in
Can we
print?
copy of that?
Thanks.
I really appreciate that, actually, that diagram, because I think it really illustrates the challenges that a lot of our members are facing in terms of making
It's very
decisions.
overwhelming what they have to go through. And,
Absolutely.
what it equates to is that there's about over 6,000 investment options. So what that really looks like, if you want to take it a step further, what we did last year doing an audit of the Compare website, staff printed every investment option available on Compare as part of the fee verification process. We didn't mean to kill a tree, but it is double-sided print, sorry about that. But it was necessary for the audit process because once the vendors began to change the information, we had no way to verify if it had actually changed. So that was the reason we had to have some historical data. So this is what, excuse me, what choice looks like in California. So to further compound the problem of offering over 6,000 investment options, there's also duplication of some of those products, if you can imagine. So what we've done is provide you with a sample of what it looks like when you have identical products but different fees. So we've broken it out to two vendors. We'll call it vendor A and vendor B. They both offer the same product, the same investment options. However, one vendor charges 1.5% more in annual fees. The next slide shows you what happens when two participants select an investment option with each of those vendors. And this is a hypothetical illustration, and we kept it simple so that you could see how fees make a huge difference. With participant A and participant B, they contribute $200 a month for the next 30 years, and we assumed an average annual return of 5% on their contributions. So again, this chart shows how much 1.5% in annual fees can negatively impact a participant's ending balance at retirement. It also shows the difference in fees that were paid over the 3 years. So by charging 1.5% less in annual fees than vendor B for the exact same investment, that equals about $26,000 difference in the ending balance and approximately $13,000 in fees.
I don't know if you're going to address this later, but I know the 403B Compare site is supposed to provide some transparency around fees, correct? Is that right? So, but I know that, I think you and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, that there's some issues around being, for our members in terms of even going to the site and actually being able to see what the fees are and interpret the information that's there. I think that's
It does
another
take some
barrier,
work.
I think, yeah.
And we are addressing that and through a discovery effort to enhance the site. Any questions before I move on?
Any other thing? Good.
Well then, in providing you with a snapshot of Pension 2, we thought it'd be interesting to show you the assets by age for each plan, the 403B and the 457, and then the last column shows the combined. I started out by providing you with the sense of issues facing DC plans nationally. And this chart is also, it depicts a trend that it is representative nationwide, and that is that the assets in the DC plans according to the age of participants. The 20-something-year-old group is still underrepresented and remains a focus of our education and outreach. But again, with that age group, they do have competing interests, recently starting a career, student loans to pay off, and a family or a home to buy. So those are things that we know are keeping them from it, but we're still going to focus some educational efforts on reaching out to them. And on the next slide, I just wanted to identify of our 22 core funds, just to identify that the top 3 investments there. Again, another trend that is consistent with our Pension 2 program is where employees invest their money, and we still have a large portion of investment money in conservative investments with 28% in the TIA traditional, 25 in the top 2 index funds, which is also a national trend towards low fees and returns on investment funds. In August of this year, we began reporting in our customer service objectives, and we identified 3 of them. The first, and the goal is to increase the percentage of educators that are participating in a 403B plan from the current deferral percentage of 40% to 60% by 2017. And again, citing back the national trends that reports, well, in NAGDA, when we did a survey of our membership, about 33% of employees were participating. So we're already exceeding that with 40%, but our target is 60% of educators participating in a supplemental savings plan. Our second objective is to have 75% of our members who are surveyed expressing a high level of satisfaction with CalSTRS Pension 2 program, and our goal is 75%. And I think we're tracking closely to that. We'll get the final numbers, but I think this month we're at 73%. And then the third goal is to increase the annual cash flow excluding investment returns, and our target is 12.5%. Just to tell you a little bit more about that, this chart speaks to the third goal, and as you can see, we've consistently met and often exceeded the target of 12.5%. Each of the years of growth can be attributed to different events associated with either the market or regulation changes and our marketing efforts, which have been instrumental in keeping us above that targeted rate. We thought this chart would be interesting to show in that it represents the returns of Pension 2 by quarter since 2009. It shows the close correlation of Pension 2 investment returns with that of CalSTRS. So I think we're doing okay. And then a quick review of each of the other programs that we oversee. The Fiduciary Advisor Program, we did complete a procurement process in 2011. The vendor that we hired was unable to meet the terms of the contract. However, the program has been placed on hold pending further research. We wanted you to know that it's still on our radar, and we know that our members trust CalSTRS and are looking for this type of program, so we are looking for options to continue it in a more improved fashion. The informational web portal. The information web portal provides basic information for districts on their 403B and 457 plans, and it's designed to be a one-stop shop for employees while assisting the districts. I mean, many have had cutbacks and don't have the personnel there to answer questions about these plans. So we have the informational web portal that provides basic information on the 403B and 457, and it's designed to also indicate the cutoff dates that are important and time-consuming questions that are typically asked of the benefits officers. It is housed on the district website. The links are here at CalSTRS, but the districts can link it to their own intranet site. Currently, all of our 403B complied districts are using this. However, it has not been well received by the TPAs that administer programs other than through CalSTRS 403B complied.
Is that, I mean, I think I've heard you say that that's partially because they want people to come visit their website. They don't want to use the portal, or what's the reason why? Or can you explain that?
I think that's a pretty good summation of it. They feel it's their responsibility, and they wouldn't want to turn their districts away towards another competing program.
And then do we have statistics on how many people visit that portal, how many people use that portal? Do we have any data on that?
We are tracking those, and when it was initially offered, we had traction of about 1,200 site visits, but it quickly dropped down to about 500 on an average each month. So, and this is without any marketing efforts associated with it.
And are we still, I know when it first came out, LACCD, my district that I teach in, was on there, and then there was the comment that if you wanted your district to be added, that you could contact Cal. Is that, are all the districts listed now for K through 12 and community college?
All districts are listed. However, again, even if an employee were to go to the district and say, hey, I like this site and I'd like our information on it, the district would have to reach out to us and work with us. But again, what they normally do is turn it over to the third-party administrator that they have hired, and they are steered away at that point. And that's what we mean by the TPAs are not receptive.
Okay.
They tell them we have everything you need about their own product, of course.
Got it. Okay.
But we'll see. It is definitely worthwhile. And often when we're in front of a school district through our request for proposal process, this is something that they're requesting. So it is a need. There's a need out there. And when they're ready for it, we'll have it. Okay. And then finally, the 4 areas that the Defined Contribution Solutions Program will be focusing on going forward are program risk, procurement services, program growth, and education. And as far as program risk, with the help of CIT, we have mapped all the processes and functions that are associated with administration of each of our programs, and this is going to give us a better understanding of what we do, how we do it, and how we can make sure that we have policies and procedures in place. The procurement services, we are working to complete the competitive bid process for the record-keeping services for the third-party administrator, and also for the 403B Comply program. Both of those are due in 2013. As far as program growth, we're seeking opportunities to grow Pension 2 through assets through the adoption of Pension 2, as well as by the informational web portal. So those together, we should be able to continue our growth pattern. And then as far as education, we're working closely with our communication staff to develop a marketing strategy that'll use the proper education medium, and of course it will include social media and reaching out to all employees at all points of their career. That's all of the information I had prepared. If there are any questions.
Talk a little bit more about that part, and then if there's other questions from committee members, let me know. But can you just be a little bit more, or give a little more detail in terms of the member education piece, in terms of communicating about 403B Compare, the Comply portal, just because I know, again, we've been talking a lot about retirement security and making sure members save for retirement, and I know that we put the websites on the progress reports and on our websites, but I'm just wondering how are we sort of proactively getting that information out so people can have resources for DC plans?
To a degree, we are limited in that we have to be invited on campus. Many of the districts have policies that regulate who can come on campus and who cannot. We do participate in any type of webinar or, benefits fair that are offered. When we get an invitation, we are there. We've also partnered with other groups that, like the Small School District Association. We're attending conferences and doing the advertising. So we're reaching out. We just think that there's a little bit more we can do. The communication staff has a lot of ideas, but they're in the procurement process right now. Once that is complete, then we'll work with them on a nice strategy to try something different. It's just easy to say, we'll be there for you, invite us, but when that doesn't work, we have to try other measures. And was there one other?
No,
okay.
That sounds good. Are there any other questions from committee members? Oh, my bad, Dana.
It's okay. It's
You're
hard to
looking
get
right
used
at
to
me.
when you're not
I
doing
know.
Julie, forgive me if I didn't catch it during your remarks when I was cruising through the item on my iPad. Do you have any type of sense of how many of our members are involved in contributing to a 403B or 457 that may be outside our product?
That is difficult, because in order to get that information, we would have to go to the other third-party administrators who are our competitors, and they're not very forthcoming with information to us.
If I can, the one place we can sort of extrapolate, which is that one performance indicator that Julia showed about what percentage are in 403Bs, that's talking about 403Bs in total, not just Pension 2. So we have that kind of information for those districts for which we do their administration through 403B Comply. And then doing some analysis, we concluded it was fairly representative of the state as a whole. So we can sort of project how many people are in 403B, but we can't know for sure unless we get the information from the administrators or from the TPAs, and trust me, they aren't going to give us that information.
So what's our projection? Have we done that?
Well, we assume right now it's about 40%
40%
of educators are in a 403B of some sort. Yeah.
But how do we know?
We know that
We need
because
that.
we administer the 403B plan for about
20 districts.
120 districts, which are representative of the state as a whole. So based on the percentage in those districts, we projected what it was for the state as a whole.
And those are the 403B districts, the 403B's plans, so it's all 63 vendors, it's not just Pension 2.
Right, so we get information about how much is being attributed to Pension 2 versus VALIC versus some other product that we offer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
All right, thanks,
This is a
Julia.
good report.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So we'll get a copy of it somehow. With the information request.
And technology never wants to work for you when you need it
I
to.
know. Sandy, did you want to comment about? So can I entertain a statement from the public related to this item? Sandy Keaton.
Dr. Sandy Keaton, LA Unified School District, as well as United Teachers Los Angeles. I would really like to thank Julia. As you know, we have the 457B plan in LA Unified, and our district We're large, we're confused. And Julia has really worked very, very hard with all of us on the Investment Advisory Committee, has worked well with everybody within the district and all of us that represent unions. So I'd really like to thank Julia and CalSTRS for all their support, and also CalSTRS for their support in our investment workshops and our pre-retirement conferences. Thank you all so much. We really do try and push our 457B plan because we oversee it, so we know it's the best plan out there. CalSTRS is the administrator. What more could we ask for? And also we push pension too. So thank all of you.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thanks, Sandy.
I did want to comment too that I know I've had Ed Durman down to Los Angeles for our community college district in LA and with FAC and other organizations, and I think as much as CalSTRS, we can reach out to our different constituency groups and us be proactive towards those communities in terms of these supplemental retirement vehicles that we have. I think the more the better. So I appreciate Ed and all the work that CalSTRS is doing to educate our members, so thank you. Moving on to item number 5, Peggy Plitt. She's going to give us progress report on compensation review unit.
So as you recall, we spent considerable time with both the committee and the board talking about this issue of pension spiking resulting in the establishment of our compensation review unit. And that unit has been very active since we established it a little less than a year ago. And we intended all along that we'd be bringing you progress reports on what the compensation review unit has been doing. And this represents the first of those progress reports. And it provides you with a summary of where we get information, as well as the kinds of cases or the kinds of findings that we're coming up with in these. I think it's important, though, to remember that we are still in our infancy in getting this program up and running. That's not to say we don't have processes, but we have yet to take one case all the way through the administrative hearing process. So we haven't yet completed a full cycle for any one member. However, we have many members who are in various stages of the process, and we're encouraged by what we're seeing and what we're finding. Paul had sent me a question asking really what channel of notification is yielding the most results for us. And I wanted to spend just a little bit of time reminding you of what some of the channels are for information coming into the compensation review unit for analysis and assessment. First and foremost, we do what's called data mining. We actually look into the CalSTRS system and we look for 4 criteria. A high salary. Do you have a salary over $147,000 a year? Do you have high special compensation reported? Special compensation more than $10,000. Do you have a high increase in your compensation year over year, more than 10%? And are you receiving a retirement benefit, an unmodified benefit, because we want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples, an unmodified benefit over $100,000? That yields the biggest pool of people for us to review. But we have other channels for receiving information as well. We get news reports. I get a Google update every day of news reports related to CalSTRS, California State Teachers Retirement System, et cetera. So I get a variety of local coverage on political issues that are important at a school district level or a county level or a city level. And those often help us identify potential problems. They may not be problems yet, but there's an indication that someone's planning on retiring and they're going to retire and receive X, Y, Z. And aren't you outraged? Or that's generally the flavor of the news article. We're able to get on top of that and perhaps prevent or correct reporting so that it never results in an incorrect benefit being paid and doesn't yield a spiking finding in the future when we have something that we have to go back and collect. We are also pleased when we get that kind of information because it's done some of the homework for us. So, I mean, we obviously have to verify all of our facts because the facts that are relevant to CalSTRS might not be the same facts that were relevant to the news writer, but we want to make sure that we are looking at the facts as it relates to the correct construct of someone's benefit. We also get information in from our pension hotlines, where individuals from school districts, from the public, from our staff, quite honestly, have an opportunity to provide anonymous information. And often through that channel, we get information that we may not catch in our data mining. The things that we see in the newspaper articles are probably people that we would catch through our data mining process, but we might not catch them until after we've begun payment. And so we're able to catch them a little sooner. The things that we get through the pension hotline are often things that we might not catch through our data mining. Their salary might not exceed $147,000 a year, but it's an indicator to us that there may be a problem there, and we're able to take a look at it. And then we also get some internal referrals from other business areas who see that there's a problem or something that doesn't look quite right on an account. The Compensation Review Unit also works very closely with our audit team so that we're not really double teaming employers and that we're not duplicating efforts. The area that has had the most promise, obviously for us, is in the data mining activity, because we see the most number of cases coming through that. And it's a little too soon for us to call which is the most effective of all of the channels, because we still don't have a full year of information to go on. But certainly all of the channels have provided us with an opportunity to look at some case, and through most of those channels we've been able to identify one, two, or more potential spiking issues. And the report highlights for you that we have made adjustments to 18 member accounts. This is as of an October 4th date. We're continuing to track and change accounts as the timeframes expire. And that we've made $290,000 in annual benefit adjustments as of that date. There's about $700,000 in estimated overpayments that's been identified for collection, and close to $3 million estimated in future savings over 10 years from these accounts that we've already adjusted. So I would say that the level of expenditure to establish and operate the Compensation Review Unit is good, that we're seeing a result from that we anticipate will get increased activity in this area. We're also working with our audit staff to identify how to communicate common findings to employers so they prevent some of the reporting kinds of errors that we're seeing. And we want to combine our information out to the employers along with that of audits to not just talk about Compensation Review Unit findings, but talk about common audit findings as well, so employers do a better job of policing their information and reporting to us correctly. So that really concludes the presentation that I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I do have Jody Kozad, the director of our Compensation Review Unit, or the manager of the Compensation Review Unit, and Peter Haley, who's the director of our Member Account Services, where that unit lives, in the audience. So if you have really technical and detailed questions about the process, they're available to answer those as well.
Thanks, Peggy. Any questions from the committee? I assume since it's kind of a new process that we'll have more data analysis as we kind of walk through in terms of cost savings to the system. And I mean, you've given us some of that already, but we'll just continue to track that. Is that something that we'll just kind of hear back from you every year on the CRU? Or
yes, we'll be doing regular updates on the activities of the Compensation Review Unit, and we'll be adding to the information that we're sharing with you any information that comes out, our success rate when we go to hearing on these issues, because we have not yet taken any of the Compensation Review Unit cases to hearing, although we've received requests for hearing for several of them.
Great. Mr. Rosensteel.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great to hear about this, and in particular the last statement you made about working with the districts themselves and making sure that that they're focusing on the data that they're delivering, because I think what this is part of sort of a multifaceted effort to make sure that we're getting better, more accurate member data fed into our system. We talked about this at the Audit and Risk Management Committee yesterday because the auditors noted this as an issue, and I think the new GASB rules create, as Jack mentioned yesterday at Audit and Risk Management, an incentive, and I think it really is a real incentive to make sure that the data is accurate. So I think it's great that this effort is underway, not just to catch spiking, but the larger, it seems to be, it's an important part of the larger effort to make sure that we have, better assurance that the data that we're getting is the accurate data. And so I think that's great. Just glad to see it happening.
I am too.
Peggy, can
I think the people who are not happy to see it happen are those individuals that we're contacting. However, other members of the system ought to be happy that we're doing that, and they are.
It helps, again, continue. I mean, we have so much respect, I think, from our members. People trust CalSTRS, but to know that we're kind of just being vigilant about accurate reporting and having the districts do accurate reporting, I think is good. So thanks. Can you introduce the other, because I know Peter, but the other person that you said.
Jody, would you please stand?
Okay.
I think we've introduced him in the past, but he
hi.
is the manager of our compensation review unit.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Peggy. So item 6, Deputy CEO reports. Ed, are you and Peggy gonna
I'll go
tag
first.
team? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to introduce Andrew Roth, who's the new director of Client Outreach and Guidance, and that's the division that does all our benefits counseling, runs the member service center. He did you see him? Okay. He comes to us with a background in okay, it's okay. I didn't see him. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. He comes to us with a background working with seniors in financial literacy, and so it's really good to have him with us. So we appreciate that. Speaking of the Member Service Center, I just want to let you know that we are now in negotiations on the lease for the Bay Area Center. So hopefully we'll conclude that soon, and we can get going on all the other aspects around constructing the center there, and then hopefully have it open sometime mid next year. And then the last thing, just to let you know, is as we approach our 100th anniversary of CalSTRS next year, one of the big efforts is a complete redesign of our website, calstrs.com. And the plan is to get it up and running in January at the beginning of the year. And we've done some very preliminary design work and seeing what it's going to look like. And it's going to be a very different kind of website, but we think a really exciting one for our members to use and for the school district. So certainly, as it gets up and running, we'll show you what it looks like. But we want to make sure you're aware that we are working on a complete revamp, and it's been several years since we've done a major overhaul of the website, but we are working on that now. And that's all I have to report.
Thanks, Ed.
And I just have one issue that I wanted to mention to you. You know that in September we lost access to the students who had been assisting us, and that has hit our contact center particularly hard, where we used many students to assist us in handling the telephone traffic coming into the system. And as a result of the loss of those students and some vacancies that we've had a very difficult time recruiting for, our service level is not at all where we would like for it to be. In fact, the wait times, the abandon rate, and our average speed to answer, all of those are very much below what our targets are. The staff are working hard. They have been quite stressed because they're not able to satisfy their customers as quickly as they would like. We just last month got authorization internally to add additional resources, so we are recruiting for those additional resources now to bring our contact center back up to what its full complement should be in order to handle the phone volumes that we receive on an ongoing and regular basis, and to help us answer or respond to our online messages on a more timely basis. We have 4 people in their final weeks of training now. We have another training class scheduled to start up soon. We have, I think, a 3rd training schedule beginning in January. So we're trying to ramp up quickly, but it may be around the first of the year before we see a significant increase in our response times. I wanted to have that conversation with you because sometimes when members have a difficult time getting in, they contact board members to say, I can't get into CalSTRS, what's up? Well, this is what's up. We're aware. We're not at all pleased with our performance there, despite the staff's very committed and dedicated effort to doing their best. But if someone's been waiting for 10, 15, or even 20 minutes, sometimes you spend a portion of your call calming that person down, and taking the time necessary to respond to their demands and requests and desire for information. So it also extends the length of our calls. So we're hoping that with the replenishment of the staff, we'll be back to acceptable and tolerable service levels somewhere early in the new calendar year. But in the event that you are getting contacts saying that it's taking a long time to get into the contact center right now, that's true. Members aren't just having a 2-minute wait and hanging up because they're tired. Their wait times are longer than we'd like for them to be.
I got a question from Mr. McGuire.
Peggy, does the system have a callback option for the caller if it's going to possibly be longer than a few minutes?
Yes, we do have a callback option for members. However, we don't turn it on all the time. Particularly, we would turn it off in the afternoon when we know that we won't be able to answer. If it's 4 o'clock and we have 35 calls in queue, then it's unlikely that we'll be able to clear all of those calls. So to promise someone a call back means that we may not be able to get to that call until after the call center closes at 6 o'clock. Obviously, once we hit that 6 o'clock mark, we're not disconnecting anyone who's online with us. We're continuing to service them, but we don't want to make a promise that we can't keep. So the callback feature only buys us a little bit of time or a little bit of joy here. It works better when we're fully staffed and we actually do have the resources to get back to them on a timely basis, but it doesn't always work when we're in a very high call demand, low call ability environment.
And Peggy, what are the numbers? I mean, do we have data on how many students did we lose, and then how many staff are we projected to kind of hire?
We have between 11 and 13 students, full-time equivalents for students. So and they worked primarily in answering calls, but they also worked in other business areas of the contact center, helping us with the stats, helping us with the maintenance, helping us with some of the other service-related activities. We just got authorization to replace 8 of those ephemeral positions with full-time people. So we will be looking at the mix of staff that we've had there. We've had an ongoing recruitment challenge for the entry level to the contact center. It's the pension program representative level, and our HR staff has been doing exams for us on a regular basis, but those exams aren't yielding candidates who are either qualified to come in and do the work that we have, or once they come in and find out what the demands of a call center are, they don't want to do that work, or they're not passing one of the other screening criteria. So we're looking at changing the blend of entry level with analytical level staff who we have a higher expectation for answering more complex calls, for learning faster, for taking on additional responsibilities. And we're finding more success at recruiting at the pension program analyst level than at the pension program representative level. And there's quite a substantial difference in the responsibility levels of those two classifications, as well as the pay for them. And so I'm sure that that's a factor also.
And I'm assuming there's a pay, I mean, do we know what the stats are on the pay difference between the students and the, I was just kind of curious what the cost
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you what those differences are, but yes, we have all of that information, and I'd be happy to send that out to the committee.
That was a factor in the business areas being able to rehire through the state process, since there could be benefit implications or other costs that they didn't have as a independent contractor. So, if they had 10 of those, it may be only 6 of these because of that.
Is this sort of a done deal that being able to use?
Well, the collective bargaining agreement just through the year, so it would be a question of how SEIU negotiates with the administration next time. There's no doubt there was an enormous cost, the entire state system of everyone trying to just really, instead of go through door A, they now go through door B. So it looks kind of foolish to the public probably that all these resources were spent rehiring people through a different means, but
I would
that's how-
also say, though, that while students in our contact center make sense for a lot of reasons, because remember, our contact center is open from 7 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. So we're able to use students very effectively at the margins of the day, where it might be more difficult to get civil service staff who want to either come in extra early or stay later beyond a 5 o'clock work time. And we're able to deploy students differently throughout the year to meet some of our seasonal workload variations. But as a result of relying on that student help, we probably haven't right-sized the number of people that we need on a permanent, ongoing basis to staff the contact center. And that's what we're doing this year through adding additional resources in there. Our call volumes have steadily increased. We thought they might start decreasing as a result of all of the improved information that we're putting out on our website and our ability to respond to online messages, et cetera. But we're finding that as members have access to information that satisfies their simple requests, that they're coming back to us with more complex requests, and those take more time for us to respond to. So the complexity of the work has steadily changed.
Great, thanks, Peggy. Any other questions from committee members? Seeing none, let's move on to item 7, the review for information requests.
I tracked 2 information requests, one for the slides on 403B, and the second being for the employment information for students versus full-time employees in the call center.
Thanks. Item 8 is the draft agenda for the next committee meeting. Take a look at that. Don't need to do anything with that, right? You just look at it. Is that right? And then lastly, opportunities for statements from the public. Is there anyone who wants to make a statement? All right, seeing none, why don't we take a, I guess we can, do I have to do a movement to adjourn? Yeah. Okay, we'll adjourn the Benefits and Services Committee.